wreck avoidances,
Stay low. Speed high, stay low.
daring passes,
Oh, you're gonna get it.
silly jumps,
Oh my god, a drive-through.
the thrill of victory,
They're against the wall. Good win, Mark. Stay low.
and the occasional mishap.
My sand crash.
This is the DMLC Racing Channel.
A new beginning with familiar faces. For the first time, Lionheart is going back to its roots. 18 races to determine who is the best and the most exciting form of auto racing on the planet. 200-mile-an-hour Indy cars, inches from disaster or glory. There can only be one inaugural champion, whose name will be etched into the Lionheart history books. Find out next. The Lionheart Speedway Series, presented by DMLC Racing Channel, starts now.
As the oldest continuously operating motor speedway in the world, the asphalt at the Milwaukee Mile can tell you tales of victories from the likes of Jim Clark, AJ Foyt, Mario Andretti, Nigel Mansell, Juan Pablo Montoya, and so many more. But before the asphalt was laid in 1954, there stands 51 years of dirt racing heritage. The Lionheart Racing Series, powered by HyperX, heads then to the Wisconsin State Fair Park to continue writing its own history in the inaugural Lionheart Speedway Series. After Dean Moll's thrilling victory at Motegi to get underway, it was Alexis Newsom taking her first victory in a fuel-save race at the Texas Motor Speedway. Can a third rookie then take victory here in the DMLC Racing Channel Milwaukee 175? Hello and welcome back to Racebot TV and continued coverage of the Lionheart Racing Series, powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15, for 15% off all orders. My name is Arjuna Kankipati. Alongside in the commentary booth, as always, is Justin Prince. TV cameras provided to us by Istvan Ballo and TrackCams22.com, with additional car cameras provided by Racebot's own Tyler Maxson. You can follow along with live timing and scoring, powered by our partners at timing71.org, by visiting the link at racebot.wtf/Indy. Let's dive straight into our sim experience countdown to green, because Justin, as mentioned, it's been a wild ride so far in these opening 2 rounds of this championship, and the question really does stand at the front of my mind: can a rookie take victory for a third time this season?
There is a chance here, especially when it comes to this track, and the potential for unpredictability when it comes to the Milwaukee Mile, because you never know when there's an incident around the corner when it comes to short track racing, and especially with how eventful some of the battles have been for both the race leads and in the heart of the pack throughout this season. This could be the race, too, where attrition could come into play big time. So keep an eye on that mid-pack as drivers fight along throughout the day today. It's expected to be a wild one.
And we're only 1 week away from getting to the first of our Triple Crown races. No double points, but I'm sure that will take some additional intrigue as we head to Homestead, Miami, the traditional season opener in both the Lionheart IndyCar and Retro Series. But here we are, Justin, and after just 2 rounds, it is Tony Schowen that still leads in these driver standings, presented by the DMLC Racing Channel, but it is very close. Dean Moll still up there in second place, and once more, you see a championship that seems to be dominated by rookies, because especially in this one, there are a lot of new blood to the Lionheart Racing Series.
A lot of them gaining tons of experience throughout this campaign, and they've been showing their good speed throughout the first couple races this season. Vern Hawkings, remember, qualified well, dropped back in the first race, picked up that speed for sure at Texas to be able to come away with the checker flag and put himself in that position to be able to battle for said checker flag. So at this point, I can see a lot of shuffling from this race onward, though, because many of the drivers are going to be challenged today with the differences on how you race the Milwaukee Mile compared to, say, Texas or the other races on the calendar.
And we did go to the Legacy Texas as well. It did produce a thrilling race, not just on strategy, but in terms of the wheel-to-wheel action instead. Let's take a look at these team standings presented by HyperX. Adrenaline Motorsports with a very healthy 60-point advantage at this point, Justin. But it's a long season, and I would not be surprised to see this one mix up as we head through in towards December and the run towards Auto Club.
For some of the teams in the mid-pack, though, it's time to start getting a little bit of consistency together if you want to fight for the team championship, because it's still early on. You never know what's going to happen, especially in these early stages, but so far, a lot of unpredictability. So we'll have to see how things fare out today, because the strategy is looking towards the direction for the unpredictability. That being said, Adrenaline Motorsports has been very consistent on all fronts so far this season in Lionheart action.
Yeah, they have. In IndyCar action, they've been very, very consistent as well. But let's take a look at these rookie standings presented by Butt Kicker. And we saw a lot of them in the top 10. I think it was 6 in total. You'll see 104 points all the way back to 53, where Alexander Van der Sant, who really impressed on debut at Homestead, struggled last time out at Texas. Really, any one of these names, Justin, that we see up on screen has been one to watch so far this season, and we're still in the very early stages. A lot of these drivers getting familiar with Lionheart and racing under its rules and regulations.
And that's very important, too, to be able to gain that experience against your fellow competitors, and that's why, in part, they want to race in a series like this, where with the DW12, it allows the opportunity to show your skill where you have to essentially use your feet as the way to drive around the track, and these rookies have shown that throughout this campaign. It's no surprise, too, that it just so happens that a majority of the drivers in the top 10 of the rookie standings are some of the quickest drivers here for today's race. They've been very lightning quick throughout the practice races and throughout final warm-ups. They should be the same in race trim.
And so with that said, nice little segue over into our series details presented by Minus 273, the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a kart or a sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz, and don't forget to also use the promo code Minus 273 LHRS15 for 15% off all orders. And Justin, you mentioned it just a few moments ago, one of the keys to this series, custom fixed setup. But unlike in the Lionheart IndyCar series with the Dallara IR18 chassis, with this DW12, no in-car tools are available to the drivers, so it's all about their feet and how the drivers actually cope with dirty air.
Absolutely, and several of the drivers have been having those challenges in preparation for tonight where they've been trying to spread apart. There's a lot of space, keep in mind, around this racetrack, up to 5 groups for these competitors. It's going to be challenging for some of these drivers, too, to be able to utilize their feet to properly get passes done cleanly here at the Milwaukee Mile. And keep in mind, this is all as well to gain momentum for the start of that Triple Crown, as we talked about, especially with Homestead coming up. It's going to be an intriguing next couple of races, to say the very least, to see who can break away from the rest of the pack, not just from the dirty air, but as well in the standings.
It'll be cool as well to see, especially in that Homestead race, how it compares to the new IR18. Here are the event details, and just like the last time out when we saw Lexus Newsom taking victory, this is a track that in the DW12 over the years in the Lionheart Racing Series powered by HyperX, Justin, 4 different race winners in 4 races. So it's not one that any single driver has been able to consistently come back and dominate, if you will, but it's a race that pole is a bit more important than it has been in the past. Pole has taken victory 6 out of the 7 races here. Excuse me, that seems to be a little bit of a miscommunication. Race has been won by the pole sitter twice in the DW12 days. We're not going to include the Lionheart IndyCar Series counts in this one today.
Yes, indeed, and it's the type of race that has also produced no 2-time winners, but as well has produced various different drivers in terms of caution flags. The most 9, that was back in Season 4. Joe Branch came away with the checkered flag 2 times. But when it comes to the Milwaukee Mile, keep in mind this racetrack, 9.25 degrees of banking in the turns around this 1-mile circuit, 2.25 degrees down the straightaways. or the 4 corners around here at the Milwaukee Mile. Lots of speed carried into the corners, upwards of 180 miles an hour. Drivers will have to roll all the way down to 157 miles an hour by the apex to corner exit to make it around this corner and make it away around the racetrack properly, especially with the bumps.
And like mentioned at the start, a track with so much history dating back to all the way back in 1903. The track only got paved in 1954, and since then has been a home and a staple for so many open wheel competitions. Justin, what are you expecting here as we work through the final couple of minutes in practice here? Solo car qualifying about to get underway. I do think we will see cars able to take multiple lines, but qualifying, I think, is going to be crucial, and I have a feeling that strategy, just like it was at Texas, is going to be very, very vital to making sure you don't get caught out like we saw a couple of cars get caught out.
I think strategy is definitely going to be the name of the game, in part if you don't have the track position early on, because when it comes to especially short track racing with open wheel racing, it can be difficult to make your way through the pack, especially with that dirty air. So I expect drivers to really emphasize qualifying and getting good hot lap speed to make sure they're up at the front. Outside of that, keep in mind that if there's early trouble, fuel could be a big talking point, as it is expected to be 53 to 54 laps on the stints today. Expected to be a 3-stopper, and early caution flag can make things very interesting in a similar fashion to Texas.
It could be very interesting. We do have, by the way, a couple of new names I saw on the entry list. Nick DeGroot, who we have seen, Justin, on Thursdays in the Lionheart Retro Series, enjoying the Lotus 79. The Motorsports.com writer and editor takes the step now into the Dallara DW12. Should be good to see how he gets underway as he begins his qualifying run. I'm waiting, though, to see what Tony Schowen can do in qualifying, because this will be, I think, Justin, a very important run, as Adrenaline Motorsports have started this season off so well. They need to continue it in terms of momentum into that Triple Crown opener.
And we talked about how difficult it's expected for some of these drivers to make their way through. Keep in mind the pace in the 21 7s and 8s. The quickest drivers in hot lap speed. Already drivers, though, setting 21 8s at the top of the board. You can just see how much you need to be smooth on the wheel with this machine in 5th gear all the way to the end of the straightaways, then arc it on down with the wider arc all the way towards those rumble strips before taking the wider line on the corner exits.
And not having that much banking, Justin, does mean that I think we'll see a number of different lines being taken. How many lines did you say that we may see? 6 or 7?
Give or take, and drivers have been told as well they can use the rumble strips too for rotating the car in particular for tonight. So keep that in mind as we see drivers fan out here, and that can in turn lead to some aggressive dives to the inside with drivers with the various lines. By the way, Tony Schowen, only a 21.9 to start off qualifying. That is about a 10th off the top time as he's pulled off.
Yeah, I think that's qualifying done for him. The times are coming in thick and fast right now. You'll see with still 3 minutes left on the clock. Michael Hagstrom goes up into 11th as Chris Fowler, Tony Schowen, and Mark Cohn are all done in qualifying. Big Joe Hassett has not enjoyed the best start to the season, and he's in fact resetting on his outlap, Justin. And this is the advantage that these drivers get on the iRacing service. If they're not feeling the run, they can always come back onto pit road as long as they haven't started and come back out to try and go for another flying lap.
Yeah, allows them to be able to recompose themselves and make sure they properly get a good run out of the pit lane. You can see with Joe Hazard, though, just how much speed he's trying to have to carry here. Not as high as an arc compared to some of the other drivers we've seen for the outlap, at least. We'll see how his time ends up balancing out. Still, the top time is Matt Taylor.
Oh, and he's understeering all the way. Had to get off the throttle as well. It's not going to be a good first lap for Big Joe Hassett. Let's see what the second lap is then, Justin, because, of course, they do get 2 flying laps, and Big Joe Hassett will get 1 more opportunity at the very least to go a bit quicker than this.
Yeah, not the greatest of laps at all. In fact, I believe that is his second and final lap. That will be up on the board at 22.6. Not the greatest of times. Matt Wagner will now take a look at. So he was very tight that entire run. Just didn't get the proper arc and balance on that throttle with his feet. Wagner, though, this time had a really good run off of turn 2.
That was a really impressive look at just how steady you can take the steering as long as you figure out, oh, this one is washing up a bit more, but he's going to be able to stick on the throttle, scrubs off a little bit more speed than he'd want. Across the line at 22.155. Let's see what lap number 2 is, Justin, here, as he goes all the way to the inside of the curbing.
That might be decent for race pace, but for qualifying pace, needs to step it up by a couple tenths. Carrying about a 175 mile an hour total into the corner that time. Missed that apex, though. That's so critical to be able to qualify well here. In fact, he actually backed it down and lifted off the gas before he even reached the start and finish line. He did not like his lap.
And so 40 seconds left in qualifying. I don't think too many cars are going to be able to improve. Tyler Graf, Christopher Kresge, and Alex Guyon have then elected to give it up. Let's say hello to you for the very first time today, just in the 30 seconds before the race here, Justin. We'll get to the starting grid in just a few moments. I've asked you for expectations, but I'll ask you for a prediction now. Do you think we'll get a third rookie winning at the start of the season, or do you think one of the established veterans, like maybe Tony Schowen, will take victory today?
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see one of the rookies come away with a checkered flag, so I'm going with that rookie prediction because they have a lot of momentum, and a lot of the rookies this year have been very strong, so I wouldn't be surprised to see one of them take the checkered.
Well, I tell you what, let's go trackside then and take a look at our starting grid here from the Milwaukee Mile. And so here is your butt kicker starting grid. It is Matt Taylor for Team Race First Red that takes pole position with a 21.856. Very impressive to have the Race First team up on the front row. Alongside, though, Adrenaline Motorsports. They look to continue their good start to this campaign. Chris Stouffer, Indiana's own, will line up on the outside there. Nick DeGroot, on debut in this series, slots it to the inside of row 2. Paul Jenkins on the outside on row 2. Alexis Newsom, winner last time out, starts on the inside of row 3. AJ Musselman will round out that row of the grid. Chris Fowler in 7th. Tony Schowen, championship leader, will start on the outside of row number 4 with Ken Hacker and Mark Cohen on the edge of the top 10. Alexander Van der Sette lines up in 11th position with the number 97 Dallara DW12. To his outside, Vern Hawkings in the number 25. Series organizer George Enzaldo lines up in 13th, 2 tenths back from your pole position, with Mike Rigney on his outside. Joe Branch, Chris Lanini share row 8 with Michael Hagstrom and Matt Houston on the row behind them. Luis Gonzalez Nunez in 19th alongside Matt Wagner in the number 3 car. Eric Schaus, another of the Dark Horse Motorsports cars, lines up back in 21st, with Trevor Malone in the teal machine back in 22nd. Jeff Young in 23rd. Jeff Krahula rounds out row 12 in our very, very big grid. Charles Teed, Barrett Rolfe, 25th and 26th, with Emerson Santos, Dean Moll, victor in our opening round of the campaign, all the way back in 28th for him, with Jim Brooks and Craig Forsyth rounding out the top 30. Final 5 cars, Brett Bennett, Joe Hassett, they're the final 2 that set qualifying lap times, but Christopher Kresge, Alex Guyon, and Tyler Graf round out our 35-car grid. You can see the cars are about to get underway on their pacing lap. We have a number of onboard looks to get to, so let's quickly cycle our way through them if we can. First up, it is winner last time out, Alexis Newsom. She has the HyperX onboard camera. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game.
Big Joe Hassert has the Graphics Esports onboard camera. Graphics Esports, world-class design from the real world to virtual. Visit graphicsesports.com.
Charles Teed has the butt kicker on board. What you see and what you hear is what you feel. For more information, visit thebuttkicker.com, and we will get to our final of the onboard cameras during the coverage of the race, because we are about to get underway here at the DMLC Racing Channel, Milwaukee 175. 175 miles at one of the most historic tracks in all of open wheel racing. And it will be Matt Taylor to lead us to the green flag, Chris Stouffer alongside for what should be an exciting race here in the Lionheart Racing Series powered by HyperX. I think we might actually get one more pace lap here. It is an interesting pit exit. No, we do not. It will be green, and instantly Taylor takes us to the green flag here at the DMLC Racing Channel. Milwaukee 175 as we see 2 wide action for 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. Justin, is already cars going below the apron.
Several of them trying to get themselves straightened out and single filed out at this moment. But the first side-by-side, it looks like, Involving Newsom and company trying to utilize that bottom line. Several drivers fanning out. But a great start, though, for Taylor and Stouffer, already up by a couple car lengths apiece for the rest of the pack.
Yeah, that's exactly what they would have wanted. You can see separation across the top 5 up to 1.2 seconds. Great little angle here, almost from the spotter's angle. And you'll see here, I think, just how difficult it is for cars to actually try and get passes done. As you see through turn 3 and 4, it's side by side between Mark Cohn and Chris Fowler. I think Fowler's just about able to hold off the challenge there, but it's going to get increasingly easy, I think, for passes to happen. Almost converse to sometimes what we see on the ovals here, Justin, when the tires start to wear, you sometimes will get momentum, and you'll see drivers making very interesting passes stick.
Yeah, you're already seeing very interesting lines with drivers being able to dive in particular to the inside, and that's forcing drivers way up towards the marbles here. Take, for example, Matt Houston side by side right now with the 28 machine of Joe Branch. So these are the best ways that drivers here at Milwaukee are just able to make passes. It can take you a couple laps to be able to set it up, but once you're able to complete it, in particular in 3 and 4, it's clear sailing usually from there. But from what we've seen, the drivers are being able to defend very well so far in some of these fights.
Yeah, no, this is interesting. You see Krahula looks to the inside. I think that's on Wagner and Barrett Rolfe, former GT Academy finalist. As here comes Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Great run from Nunez as he'll look to the inside, Justin. This is on the edge of the top 20. You are finding that basically the top 15 are very much single file, and that this is where you find a lot of the action. Basically where dirty air is proving to be more of an issue as Rolfe almost takes them 3 wide for a moment.
And I think he's still potentially thinking about it if he can build up a run. And he was one of the drivers when looking towards the starting grid who I thought might be one of those drivers who has a chance to at least pounce into the top 10 early on. Because he did it at Texas. He might have the chance to do it here. The problem's going to be properly getting the passes done cleanly and efficiently. Because several drivers have been very tight when it comes to their squeezes and some of their near contacts to try and make passes. You don't want that to end up happening and end up destroying your race. As you see, this whole train of cars is currently trying to get around that 66.
Yeah, I think that 66 of Matt Houston is a bit of a cork in the bottle as here comes Wagner to the inside. Rolfe, by the way, is already up 5 positions. Wagner is up 4, so we are seeing passes happen as you see side by side, not just between Wagner and Houston, but also Rolfe, who's now up into 20th, so he's up 6 positions. There's almost contact in front between Gonzalez Nunez and Chris Lanini. These guys, Justin, once more for a 3rd week in this championship, are going wheel to wheel and making things stick.
And it was expected to be difficult to make passes. We're seeing that as drivers are just trying to force their way into whatever situation they can to make these passes. It's not like, say, Phoenix, where it can be tough for the dirty air, but a caution.
That's the first caution of the day. Not sure exactly why. I think it's James Krahula who's got some damage on the front end of his car, Justin. He's coming straight down onto pit road.
And he definitely got some help there in the middle of the corner, I believe, from Hagstrom. That sent him flying up into the safer barrier hard with the back end. Tough break as it looks like a bit of a slower corner apex for Krahula. In part, sees him slide up the racetrack and into the safer barrier. You'll see from the contact from behind.
Let's take a look at this aerial look brought to us by ATVO, graphical partners at Racebot TV. And, oh yeah, you'll see just more speed there. And Hagstrom, I think, was much more comfortable at that point in the run as well, Justin.
Yeah, looked very comfortable, was being able to swing it right against those rumble strips in turns 3 and 4. But overall, you need to be prepared for those checkups here because drivers will have that happen where you have the different apex speeds and different preferences on how you attack these corners. But now it gets interesting because we talked about those numbers. The first projected numbers were within a couple laps of this mark. I'm curious to see who tries to top off here and thinks big picture, but here's the thing. When it comes to short track racing, the tendency usually lies along there being potential cautions.
Joe Branch is down, though, so he was in about, I think it was 12th or so position. Here come the floodgates as well. Eric Schaus, Trevor Malone, Dean Moll, Jeff Seong, Craig Forsyth, and much more down on pit road. So we saw split strategies last time at Texas. And you know what, Justin? If you're back in the pack, you might as well come down and get fuel. But for Joe Branch, that's a bit more of an interesting call, if you ask me.
Yeah, he had some good track position, but I think he's just thinking big picture here in terms of how things were faring out early on, because the drivers were doing a solid job fighting back and forth. I think he's just banking on them continuing to fight like they were before, cleanly with respect early on, but we'll have to wait and see if it ends up becoming a trend where we see cautions every few laps, or if it ends up becoming a long run here all the way to the end of the first window.
Green flag runs are what we love to see. One more onboard camera that we didn't get time to jump on board with. It is Mark Cohn with the DMLC onboard. The DMLC Racing Channel, your home for the best sim racing videos online. So we'll have not just those four, but of course drivers onboards with every single car in this field. The one wonderful thing about the iRacing service, Justin, is we get almost infinite camera angles. I think I did a bit of totting up for a 500-mile race I had at Indianapolis sometime last year. I think I counted about 500 track cameras, and then when you include the various onboards, I think it's 11 per car, times that by 33, and it all adds up to over 1,000 different angles that we can choose from.
And it's amazing what you can do with iRacing and the inspiration that real world broadcasters are also taking from the camera angles as well to be able to utilize them for the real world. But these drivers are ready to hope that they can keep up with Matt Taylor here on this launch.
Once more, we're about to get green. It's a long hold from the pace car, because of course that's a very interesting pit entry, and here we go. Matt Taylor brings us back to the green flag. The DMLC Racing Channel, Milwaukee 175. A little bit of a better jump this time from Nick DeGroot, but unable to make things work. Let's see, Justin, if he's going to be able to pull up alongside as we come across the start-finish line the next time around.
We'll have to wait and see, as right now just cannot close up quite yet, just evenly matched on the speed and matching tire for tire just about, but there's the different lines coming in. DeGroot just able to take a more tighter apex line in to be able to try and close up a little more speed. That's going to cost him a bit, though, on the corner exits.
You saw there, by the way, Michael Hagstrom down on pit road. Think damage from his incident might unfortunately be a bit more significant than he thought. As here's the battle for 16th position. George Anzaldo really 3 wide. Oh, watch this one as Barrett Rolfe down the inside. It's Lanini who's going to lose out as Anzaldo sweeps his way down with a car exiting pit road. That was chaotic for a moment, Justin, but they all made it work.
I have to say Barrett's definitely putting on a show when it comes to this series so far. How about 10 positions gained so far, and he's one of the quickest cars on the racetrack. He's just executing these lines to perfection right now, especially to try and keep the tires underneath them. He's done a very solid job, but there's fighting now right along and behind him at this point.
Luis Gonzalez Nunez has just gotten past George Anzaldo, so he slots his way into 18th position. Anzaldo is down to 19th. Out front, it's once more a bit more single file. You have to go back to the edge of the top 10 to really find a car. It's only 1/10 behind Justin. Let's jump on board with Van der Sant here and see what this is like through 3 and 4, all the way in the dirty air. He's trying to come down to the inside, but you can see the car is washing up, and oh, he just about keeps it out of the wall.
Yeah, this aero wash is also going to be a major factor all day, because the aero wash essentially makes you tight coming off these corners. But if you're able to manage that throttle well enough, you can counteract it a little bit. That time, you've seen the push from Chris Fowler in particular nearly open up the door for Van der Sant to attack. The problem is he's getting that aero wash at the other end of the speedway, even more significant than what Chris Fowler is in some circumstances.
Opens the door for Vern Hawkings, who gets very close, but fed that dirty air. Ken Hacker slides up the track as well. It does seem as though, Justin, unless you are all the way back in the pack at this point in time, it's hard to really close on up. You can see at the front now, half a second separates Matt Taylor and Chris Stouffer, with Nick DeGroot a further half second back. Paul Jenkins a further half second back. They're basically stacked themselves up in half second increments right now.
And that's usually right around that major buffer where the dirty air really starts to play a factor in these machines, so that's not a surprise to see that big of a buffer. But when it comes to some of these closer battles, it gets more and more tougher with the aero wash the closer you get to the back wing of somebody. Take, for example, Newsom with the HyperX on board. You can see within 3 car lengths, it's about a couple tenths or so, already having to fight hard to make sure it doesn't hit that safer barrier.
And she got super close to the outside retaining wall, Justin, just trying to maximize the width of the track here so that you ensure that you really carry as much momentum as you can. Ultimately, though, it's a search for clean air, and you can see Newsom trying to dive a bit lower. It's not going to work that well, and ultimately, it scrubs your tires a little bit more and might compromise Newsom further down in this run.
Yeah, that's going to be a concern later on, especially to make sure you can properly turn the car. And it's an art form to be able to properly save and manage the tires, keep in mind, around this racetrack as... Oh, by the way, Barrett Rolfe, he's still charging hard. This is now for 15th position, and he is still, when he is single file, the quickest car on the racetrack by sometimes up to a 10th.
He's up 11 on the day as well, Justin. I mean, going to be hard to, I think, argue against the potential for Rolfe to make his way up through the field, but it is going to get increasingly difficult. The gap between Taylor and Stouffer has extended up to 7/10 now, and I do think that no matter how quick Rolfe is looking right now, it's a different proposition once you get up into that top 10. The likes of Tony Schowen, you've got Chris Stouffer from the Adrenaline Motorsports team, you've got Alexander Van der Sant, who's been very strong, Alexis Newsom, previous race winner. I mean, I do think that Rolfe at this point is going to start finding these moves, requiring a little bit more setup now.
I agree with you because like we talked about, it can take several laps to be able to properly set up the move. It's not necessarily just, okay, I'm right at the back end, let's go and send it. You need to set them up and get a proper rhythm to get the job done. And that's what some of these drivers are trying to get into that rhythm, to get into a flow as Musselman loses the top here.
And loses the top. Newsom, I think, kind of forced her nose, and this might open up the door. More momentum on the outside for the winner at the Texas Motor Speedway, and across the line, Newsom is in front, and Musselman concedes the position. Gap now between Newsom and Jenkins is 1.7. I think Musselman is starting to struggle a bit more now, Justin, and this releases Newsom. What can Tony Schowen do from behind? As you see, Mark Cohn is all over his rear wing as Alexander Van der Sant looks to the inside as well.
Musselman just isn't getting a good run off these corners right now by a decent margin. Just opens up that door, and there's the later arc right there. Just try and get him a little bit higher up in the groove as well in this fight back and forth between Cohen and Schoen. And this is what Musselman now wants to see, to be able to try and break away from these cars, get back into a rhythm as they go back and forth.
Great over-under by Schowen trying to get the move done into turn 3, but Mark Cohn holds on. Wonderful roll bar look as you can see Schowen will stick to the inside through turn 1 and 2 once more. Tries the slide job. Cohn will hold on here. Wonderful look from this DMLC onboard. And now take a look, Justin. It's Alexander Van der Sant is going to try and do the same to Schowen.
And Van der Sant has shown good speed throughout the season, just hasn't had the luck so far. Just really pushed up that racetrack. This opens up the door for that 31 again to try and take him a little bit of a peek. But the momentum has been lined along that top line to be able to squeeze down. That top group is starting to come in, it looks like.
So, Tony Schowen, championship leader, down to 9th. Alexander Van der Sant, great move there to take advantage. And next up for both Cohen and Van der Sant will be the Musselman. And how long will it take for them to close up there? Gap between Taylor and Stouffer, 1.3 seconds as Nick de Groot finds himself 6/10 behind Stouffer. Paul Jenkins is really in the mix for a podium position as well, and Alexis Newsom has closed that gap down by a couple of tenths. Last time around, it was 2 tenths eaten into the gap at the line. This time, Justin, it's a further tenth, so Newsom is going to be right up in the mix in a couple of laps' time.
Well, Lexus 2 is in a bit of clean air compared to, say, behind, where it's congestion city for some of these fights. So it allows you to be able to get into some clean space for the next few laps or so until Newsom is back within range of Jenkins and company by about a second or so. That's where I think the pace is going to even out a little bit, and it's going to become that much more harder. By the way, Barrett Rolfe, he's making things look easy with the up and unders in these corner exits to be able to get the runs off the straight into the straightaways.
And these guys really are going wheel to wheel. I mean, corner entry speeds in excess of 240 clicks. And coming off the corner, they accelerate up to about 280, give or take, in towards turn number 1. So a dirty air, I'm sure, must be feeling like hell for these guys as we ride off the rearward shot from Chris Fowler, 6/10 behind Ken Hacker in 11th position. Rolfe is finding a bit more difficulty. He's now only up one position in the last, I'd say, 5 laps or so, Justin. And now we start thinking about fuel, because the fuel window, 54 laps without any sort of caution intervention. I would suspect that some cars might be able to extend the stint now to about 60 laps, and so that means drivers are due down onto pit road in 20 laps or so.
And that makes things very interesting for the drivers who topped off and thought big picture here, because if it ends up going that way, it's, for one, an interesting pit lane where you have a very short run up from the pit entry itself to the commitment cone. But two, that offset is going to be interesting, in that drivers may have to save too, even with that top off, with how things timed up. So the numbers are going to be very intriguing. We may have another fuel mileage race on our hands if this continues the rhythm it's going.
So Matt Wagner slips on past Chris Fowler. Now Barrett Rolfe sizes up Fowler. Fowler gets very much checked up coming through the exit of turn 2. Don't think that's going to open the door for Barrett Rolfe, but he'll stick his nose there and see if Chris Fowler's going to play this game of chicken. Oh, wheel to wheel at 220 kilometers an hour. And Barrett Rolfe is a man on a mission here, Justin, looking for his 13th position of the day.
Yeah, he really is looking strong here, especially when it comes to arcing it into these corners. The problem is he's getting held up with the momentum. Now he's under attack here from Matt Houston up to his outside.
Houston looks to try and take advantage, rolls momentum. There's almost contact between the two of them. Oh, I think for a moment there was a bit of rubbing there, Justin. Houston will still sling that one down the outside, as I think George Anzaldo is trying to get on the fun as well.
Yeah, this has to be frustrating if you're Rolfe, knowing you're quicker, but the problem has been now that squeeze that drivers have been able to execute on turn 2 in particular from the outside is enough to just hold up all that momentum from the dive. You'd need to be able to clear by the apex. This is now similar to, as you would say, a cork in the bottle situation now, with Chris Fowler here really holding up these cars.
Houston tried to go for the inside line, but just like as what happened to Rolfe a few moments ago, where Houston took around the outside, here comes Rolfe to go around the outside of Houston. Once more they almost make contact. Wonderful aerial look here as we complete lap 42 for these drivers. Down the inside comes Luis Gonzalez Nunez. 3 wide, they work. It's Barrett Rolfe who's up into 13th position. Still Nunez and Houston side by side, Justin.
And they're losing about 3/10 a lap with all this fighting, so they have to sort things out eventually here. Otherwise, they might lose range to where Wagner is. It's to the point where Wagner has already pulled 2 seconds, as here we go again to the inside.
Ew, you slid up the track there, and I think Fowler has very much lost momentum. Nunez will come down his inside as side by side they work. And Barrett Rolfe is clear up into 13th position. Also up 13 positions on the day. Left-hand side of the screen, let's show you those movers and shakers so far. Who's that down onto pit road? Chris Fowler then, the first car, Justin, to come onto road.
Well, that's an interesting decision there to come down. Still could have gone an extra about 15-20 laps we were expecting there. So, been an early call there for Chris Fowler, maybe switching up the strategy a bit here.
And he's going to be hoping, Justin, that we don't get a caution now, because he's gone down a lap as a result of coming down pit road. And that's just the way things swing. If you get caught out by an untimely caution, you'll find yourself with an uphill, battle to then try and overcome for the rest of the race.
Yeah, that's just one of the tough things when it comes to these calls, where, especially short track racing, whether it's open wheel, whether it's stock car, whether it's any type of racing here at a short track, pitting under green is a massive risk, because you never know if someone's going to end up making a mistake and bring out a caution flag. It's a gamble that hasn't worked out for some in the past few weeks in Lionheart action combined across all the series, so it's definitely a risk. If I'm doing the math right, he might be able to break it down 45-90 and then split the run for the closing stages. If it goes green, Fowler might be thinking of it that way.
So strategy once more at the forefront of drivers' minds here in the Lionheart Speedway Series, as I think that was Mark Cohn that's just gone and passed the Muscleman, who is once more frustrated. A number of drivers here doing a good job for his own race chances, but Cohn is now 3 seconds adrift from the leading group. Matt Taylor now enjoys a 1.9 second advantage over Stouffer and the cars behind, so illustrates how important clean air is, as Van der Sande almost slid up into the path of Musselman. So Musselman is struggling now, Justin, and he'll be hoping that the little bit of the gap that he has behind to Tony Schowen will enable him just focus on building up the speed once more.
Now, looking at the times right now, 23.7 last time by. The pace has been upwards of nearly 0.2 a lap slower on average the past 5 compared to the cars in front. So might have overused his stuff, possibly trying to keep up with the front runners, and now paying the price at the back end of this run.
Wagner versus Vern Hawkings. This is for 11th and 12th. Once more, they get oh so close, but they make it work. And I must say, Justin, it's been the story of these opening 3 races, right? It's been a very, very close, but ultimately respectful racing that has really intensified come the end of these races. So once more, as we tick our way towards the opening third being complete here from the Milwaukee Mile, and I think Vern Hawkings down on pit road as well, seeing that this is going to be not just a battle on track, but strategy as well.
Yeah, this is the opening of that pit window now. Able to divide it here from about 5,100 to about 150 if you so desire. So this is going to be intriguing how much time in turn people go in as the caution's out.
And I was just saying untimely cautions could cause a big issue. I think it's Jim Brooks in this one, Justin. See if we can spin up the Racebot TV replay machine.
Jim Brooks, I believe, hit the back end of somebody. In fact, Emerson Santos, I believe, he tapped the right rear of for what's going to be a big caution in terms of the strategy. Able to lock it down, but it's still enough to be able to draw the caution flag, as you don't want to end up having a car slow down in the middle of the racing line like that.
No, definitely not. Let's take a look at this replay. You'll see, oh, he just sends it in very hard, trying to defend from some of those moves down to the inside. Gets rather fortunate to not get collected as well. I tell you what, though, let's come back to live coverage, Justin, because pace car has collected the leaders. This is going to be interesting. How long do these cars spend on pit road, and do we see any changes because cars are doing fuel saving?
I think we see these drivers go about maybe 8.5 seconds in the pit box, give or take on the average, depending on how drivers feel. But I would fill it up here at this point. Make sure you can make it a 2-stopper from here. And as expected, everybody going to have to come down here to try and even out these strategies.
Taking a look at the timing screen to see if there's any dissenting calls at this point, but does not appear as so. So I think every single car on the lead lap, which totals 31 down on the lane, doesn't look like any changes on the race off pit road. Mark Cohn and Alexander Van der Sant are very, very close, and I wonder actually if Van der Sant has slipped on through here, Justin.
That would be interesting too for Van der Sant to pick up some valuable track position. For Van der Sant, did have a bit quicker of a stop compared to Cohn, an 8.1 compared to Cohn's 8.5. So that little bit of a difference, plus 0.3 quicker in the lane, might have helped that 97 jump up a couple spots.
And this is a race, Justin, where it bounced between having just 4 cautions in a couple of years, both season 3 and 5 of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, but then also 8 and 9 in seasons 1 and 4. And if you include the IR18, if you include the infamous race in season 6, 17 different cautions. So give or take, I think we're looking pretty good right now given how close these cars are racing, and the incidents that we've seen have been rather minor given the level of competition that we're also seeing.
I think right now the trends absolutely are going towards the longer runs from what we've seen so far. At least at the moment, I wouldn't be surprised to see another 40-lap or so run if we get back going and drivers keep on racing the way they have been. But the main thing they have to keep in mind once more is it's still a 2-stopper from here. Simple as that. And right now the timing of the later stages too is currently lining up for what could be a very late final pit stop for a couple of these drivers if it ends up following the same trend.
And you have to think as well, this restart, Justin, might be one of the prime opportunities for Christopher to actually get this pass done, because gap had built up almost to 2 seconds when the caution had flown. So for Indiana's own, I do think he needs a good launch. He needs to be side by side working down into turn 1, as I think lights are off on the pace car. We'll go back to racing this time around.
And Taylor seems determined to try and take this checker flag, especially since he's been quick in just about every type of Lionheart action lately. Been very consistent, but the main thing has been perfect starts so far from him so far to make it difficult for Stouffer to try and pounce. Stouffer, as talked about, needs to be near picture perfect on the launch, and give credit to Nick DeGroot. He's still quietly been running inside that top 3 the entire race so far.
Yeah, no, I mean, for his debut on the day in the series, I mean, it's great. I mean, qualified up front, staying up front as well, but pace car down onto the safety of pit road once more. Green flag in the hand of Barney, the flagman. It's going to be once more a very early jump from Taylor. Stouffer is not ready for it. DeGroot was. He's close to Stouffer. Can he get into the inside into turn 1? He thinks about it, but then thinks better of it as, caution's back out already. I think Emerson Takashima has been mixed up in something here, Justin. Let's see if we can pick up the Racebot TV replay.
And this is something that is so easy to end up doing, where you're trying to go through the gears, try and get up to speed, and you accidentally downshift. It almost looked like that was the case here, that or a massive bit of tire spin. Keep an eye on right here. In first gear, trying to get through the gears, floors it up, hits the rev limiter, bye-bye race car.
Oh, and hard damage to the rear end there as well. I think he's not actually come down onto pit road. Excuse me, Emerson Santos. My timing screen is giving me 2 different names for him, Justin. So, nevertheless, end result is significant damage to the rear end there.
Yeah, no back wing. That's going to be a significant amount of time in the lane, too. A bit of chassis damage, I believe, as well to the right rear. But it's something you can do easily here. And with this type of car where you're trying to mat it to the gas, and as soon as you hit that rev too quick, it just spins you around all the way around like that.
Well, so, caution then very much back out in quick order. No cars expected to come down onto pit road. Third caution of the day then, here from the Milwaukee Mile. Matt Taylor, you mentioned the strength that he's been showing, not just in the Speedway series, Justin, but that's what I think this type of a sanctioning body sometimes lets these drivers do. They focus in on one rule book, one rule set, and one set of competition. And for someone like Taylor, who's competing across the suite of Lionheart, sanctioned competitions, it's always good when week in, week out, you have something to focus on, and he's very much making the most of it.
Keep in mind, plenty of organizations focus on series like Lionheart, to where they know it's where if you want to show you're the best of the best in open wheel action, you race in Lionheart. And you can tell Matt Taylor's definitely put in the preparation for this race to be quick for tonight, and the preparation throughout the season to be quick at just about all the tracks so far. He's looked consistent, he's kept his pace up well, and the starts have been nailed to perfection so far early on. Question's going to be, can he keep it up right now in that red and black machine?
And out of the 35 cars that took to the green flag, 1 retirement, that is James Grahula in the number 4 machine. Michael Hagstrom is still circulating 9 laps down, seems to be having some, whether it's technical issue or some sort of damage that seems to hinder that race car. He's struggling. Then 1 lap down, you have Vern Hawkings, Christopher Kresge, Tyler Groff, Jim Brooks, and Brett Bennett. So, a number of those machines have come down onto pit road, as has Chris Fowler here, Justin. Just notice that the number 20 car has had to come down onto pit road this time around.
Well, remember, he had to take the wave around because he pit under green, and this allows him to match up the strategies with everybody else. So, like you said before, you're at the back of the field, why not come in and top off? And that's exactly what he did.
Seems to be the only car, by the way, on the lead lap that did so. Emerson Santos, of course, is fixing repairs, so I will include him in that bucket as well. So 28 cars still on the lead lap. I believe lights are off on the pace car this time around, Justin. 61 laps. They've ticked off rather quickly here.
Yeah, these laps here at Milwaukee Mile can just go by so fast. We're running 22, 23-second lap times, mind you, around this facility today. So it's lightning fast, and once you get into that flow, they just click away. Click, click, click.
And we'll be hoping to click some of those laps away here with a nice long green flag run. Safety car back down onto pit road. And as always, expecting the early jump from Taylor. Stouffer is once more not prepared. Is De Groot going to throw it to the inside? Looks to do it, and I think once more just realizes too early in the race to try and risk anything in terms of his first Lionheart Speedway Series race. Because a podium at the end of the day, Justin, that would be fine reward for the motorsports.com rider.
Yeah, and he's definitely looking like he's having some fun so far at the front of the field, has been consistent. And keep in mind, has been a long-time sim racer on the iRacing service too. Has competed as well in Monday Night Racing, one-time champion in that side of things as well, with some of the best of the best on that side, including some of the best open-wheel racers. So Nick De Groot has a large resume when it comes to sim racing as well as his real-world career.
Talking about sim racing resumes, though, there's Barrett Rolfe to the inside of Ken Hacker. He's up into the top 10 for the first time today. Hacker will fight this one back. Gonzalez Nunez, by the way, past Matt Wagner, as you see George Anzaldo and Matt Houston duking it out side by side. Always seems to be a bit more intensity in this mid-pack, and Barrett Rolfe has done a wonderful job, Justin, of making full use of the chaos and making his way up into the top 10 now.
I was about to say, these caution flags are definitely helping them because it bunches everyone back up, allows them the opportunity to immediately pounce on our competitors and try and make passes. It's worked out well for him so far. Now it's the big question mark of, now that he's gone through many of the drivers who have been battling back and forth, how is he going to go about racing those drivers who have been running mainly single file up front? Keep in mind, some of the other drivers behind him are trying to follow suit, like Nunez here, who is now looking to go +8.
Oh, but wonderfully done by Hacker there. Realized that if he threw the car into the corner, it would stick on these fresher tires, and I think as the run goes on, that might be a slightly easier move. Nunez in the Necky racing machine, though, watches Hacker slide up the track one more time. Won't be close enough to get the move done this time, but always going to be a threat in terms of moving his way up into the top 10. He's up 7 on the day. Got some big movers and shakers. Dean Mall, race winner in our season opener, Justin. He's up 10. Got a number of cars that are up to double-digit position, so we thought passing might be difficult, but there are a number of cars that are proving us wrong right now.
Yeah, the tough part has been getting inside the top 10 from the back of the field, and that's where the importance of qualifying comes in, because it's a full race job to be able to make your way up to where Matt Taylor is. You need everything to go well. You need to hope that you're not involved in any trouble. You have to also be able to be patient enough to execute in this type of a rhythm of a circuit. So it can take you a long while to cut your way through the pack. It's not like you're going to gain all those spots in 10 laps. It's going to take you essentially 2/3 to a full race to make it up front. By the way, now a quick pass for the 33 machine to get himself to 9th.
It's incredible the way that he's just got so much confidence in the car to carve his way up into now 9th position. That 33 car really is on a roll right now, and a man on a machine searching, a man on a mission searching for his first Lionheart Speedway Series victory. He's got championship leading Tony Schowen in front of him. Don't think that's going to be too much work for Barrett Rolfe to get on past Tony Schowen at this point. Once more, though, Justin, the gap out front has opened up, as you'll see as we jump on board with Chris Stouffer. The dirty air just seems to be a bit too much for Stouffer to deal with, and as you run through turn 1 and 2, the gap is extending every single lap, basically.
That's because of the clean air advantage, again, from Taylor to be able to properly rotate that car in the open space. As compare that to Stouffer, he's getting fed all of that dirty air line to line, and it's pushing him up an extra half a lane on corner exits, which essentially is where he's losing the time. So that's why essentially you want to find these clean air pockets if you can, because it helps you rotate. If you can't get yourself to rotate, then you're in trouble.
And Zaldo, by the way, around the outside of Matt Houston. So this battle on the edge of the top 10, it just intensifies in just the aggressiveness. Oh, that's Houston, I think, up into the wall. We're going to stay under green flag conditions here. No, we're not. Lap 74. And we've got a couple of cars that have gone mixed up in this one. I think Big Joe Hassard as well. Oh, no. Chain reaction, Justin. Let's go ahead and take a look at this Racebot TV replay.
A big hit there for that black and red machine. Just a bit of contact on the send. Near 3 wide to the left rear, then comes down the track.
And is that Joe? I'm almost 100% sure that's Joe Hassard. That's for, I think, a third consecutive week, going to end this race with minimal points. Let's pull it back slightly further and jump on board with Hassard, because he did have one of our onboard looks. I'm not sure that's what Graphics Esports were hoping for, but Justin, let's walk through this one, and nothing really that Hassard could do here.
Especially when you have a driver bounce off the outside wall and let it roll down the track into the racing line. He is not going to be happy, to say the very least, because, well, there is nowhere for him to go. You do not expect that to happen in front of you. And it can be absolutely frustrating when it does.
Split strategy. De Groot stays out. Who else follows him? Alexis Newsom, who won on strategy last time at Texas. But Matt Taylor, Chris Stouffer, they're down on pit road. Mark Cohn stays out as well, Justin. This is very, very interesting.
And this is now similar to what we've seen in some of these races. Track position gambles to try and hope that you get a caution flag before you have to come down under green. I don't know if this is going to play out that way or not, though. With what we've seen, I think these drivers are hoping the intensity level really picks up here. Everybody else, though, who just ducked in can make it on a one-stopper from here.
Fascinating. Oh, I love a strategy battle, Justin. And after what we saw last time with the rookie Alexis Newsom taking her first victory under a fuel-save race, the prospect of one more of these, it really does get my appetite up. But of course, you can't get too ahead of yourselves. Fourth caution of the day. We've now tied for the fewest cautions this race has seen, and haven't even reached the halfway point yet.
This is going to be an intriguing race now. If this ends up going green, I will say that much, because you're having 2 stoppers versus 1 stoppers now. And remember, drivers like Mark Cohn were up towards the front, had to come in with the extra stop, remember, with about 20 laps to go at Legacy, Texas. We're looking at similar situation, but here's the thing. You never know when the caution flags are going to fly at the Milwaukee Mile, and we've seen that already with some of these moves here in the heart of the pack, especially with some of the aggression. It's a big-time gamble, though, to get that track position in clean air.
We mentioned, by the way, the amount of history at this track in terms of American open-wheel competition. You go back to 1985. That's when Mario Andretti won at this track for the 4th time in his career. The next 2 years, his son Michael won. So in 1986, 1987, another Andretti took victory. And it's one where all the greats have won. Jim Clark, AJ Foyt, of course the Andrettis, the Unzers have their own family heritage at this track. And then, of course, a certain Formula One champion called Nigel Mansell won at the Oval here en route to the kart championship. And then in 2000, another F1 driver, Juan Pablo Montoya, gave Toyota its first ever kart win. So I must say, Justin, it hasn't been the most enthralling race at the front, but you are seeing a lot of driver skill in terms of carving their ways through the field. And someone like Barrett Rolfe resets himself in 16th position now. This will be a fun restart.
Yeah, that's going to be a true test to see how De Groot can hold on in the clean air, since it's so valuable. We've seen throughout the day as well. Newsom as well. I'm curious how she does up towards this front, but it's going to be interesting how the errors battle out through here. Keep in mind that you also have Santos mixed in this in 12th position, up 15 spots in the heart of this pack after the damage repair from before.
So you got 9 cars at the front of your field who have not come down pit road. Santos is in 12th. Taylor and Stouffer separate him from the other cars on this split strategy. Does De Groot go as early? No, he does not. That forces Cohn to, I think, jump out of line. Bit more chaotic restart here as we fly our way down in through turn 1. The Muscleman. Oh, we've got a caution very early on. Chris Lanini here getting involved. It's coming out of turn 4 once more, Justin.
And it's near a carbon copy of what happened before with Santos. Just as soon as he got to the top end of the first gear, It just spun hard left. This time it's with the front end instead of the back end.
Take a look at this onboard one more time and we'll see. It's that jump from first into second, which seems... It's actually on that gear shift as well, Justin. The car just leaps forward and it unsettles the driver. And unfortunately, like you said, second time today, it's a mirror incident of what we saw before.
And Lanini got harder contact to the wall compared to Santos, so that's going to be both sides, as well as the right side pod crushed in on Lanini. Still, though, this is going to be fun.
What a shame, and he's going to actually go down a subsequent lap because you can see him entering pit box. Leaders across the start-finish line to put him one lap down. So working lap 81 out of 175 here, Justin. A fifth caution on the day, and to be fair, two of those cautions have been on the restarts. This driver's getting a bit caught out by the amount of power these Dallara DW12s have.
And as talked about, it can be tricky to do that, especially in the corner, as we've seen. To get through the gears quickly and precisely, you need to essentially get towards the straight. It's the second time we've seen the driver in the back part of the field have that situation, so I think drivers are going to now have be adapting in that mid-pack, especially to make sure they don't make that mistake again. Take that to note, because you don't want to end up being the third person to cause the caution in that situation.
You definitely don't want to have that same thing happen to you. I wonder if there's going to be some communication between the drivers. Just a reminder, by the way, while we work through this fifth caution on the day, you want more esports action, plenty of accounts to then go ahead and follow. First up, the Lionheart series. For all news and information on the 3 competitions run by the Lionheart sanctioning body, you can head to Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to keep up to date with the latest from the social media team there. Then ESTV, where we're delighted to be broadcasting these races on their connected TV platform after each race. You can follow them at CoESTV on Twitter and ESTV.co on Facebook and Instagram. And of course, our Racebot TV for all your sim racing coverage. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, and Instagram at Racebot TV. And if you're not already subscribed to us on YouTube, you can hit the red button and the bell next to it to get notified every single time we go live with a great sim racing series we get to cover. So, at least one more lap under safety car here, Justin. And let's talk about this Dallara DW12. We said it at the start of the show, right off the bat. No in-car tools, it means it's all about the drivers. And now with 9 drivers on older tires, it's going to be very interesting how they respond when the likes of Taylor and Stouffer make their way past and feed them all of that dirty air.
And I was noticing there was a good portion of fall off for a couple different drivers by a couple tenths or so, so that difference may start to settle in about 10-15 laps or so, that difference. But overall, it takes a lot of talent to be able to drive this machine, to be able to properly rotate in the corners with it, and we've seen that all race long so far. I think, though, it's going to be tough for Matt Taylor to be able to pass all these cars, and it's going to be important to think big picture now in this situation.
Well, the big picture is we are inching our way towards the halfway point. 5th caution of the day here at the DMLC Racing Channel, Milwaukee 175. Pace car back down onto the relative safety of pit road in just a few moments' time. The question now is, how long does Nick de Groot wait? No wait this time. Much easier jump for him down in towards turn number 1. He'll be hoping that we stay green as the field flies their way down through turn 1. But this time around, Justin, much better start for Nick de Groot. Look at this here, though. Matt Wagner on back, 7th place, starting to get a bit more hectic here.
Some of these drivers looking towards the inside and trying to build up runs, but the tough part's going to get to being side by side for said runs. Just got to be able to wait more patiently. Just get into that proper rhythm and wait for the hole like that to open up.
Stouffer tried to cut a bit of the apron, but no dice that time around. Taylor with the momentum down in towards the turn 3, slightly higher up the track. He runs, trying to do the over-under on Alex Gouillon. This is going to work for him very nicely, Justin. The question now becomes, how does Eric Schaus feed some dirty air to Matt Taylor?
And you can see that dirty air just enough to be able to force him to lift a little bit. But Gouillon is just right now nearly up in those marbles at the moment. So this is allowing Taylor that opportunity to be able to rotate. Just a matter of needing to get clear on the corner exit just like that.
And Stouffer will follow him through. So these are the cars on the fresh tires trying to cut their way through the fields. Not as easy as we thought. Stouffer sends it deep, just trying to use the tires and lean on them while he can to get up into 10th position. Out front, by the way, Newsom and De Groot have scampered away very slightly here. 3/10 separating those two drivers. 1.1 seconds further back to Mark Cohn now, Justin, who finds some lap traffic in between him and the front two contenders.
And that's going to be a bit frustrating to get the dirty air off. Vern Hawkins, the third up there. It's going to take some time to be able to close in. But we've seen the gaps that can form up, and the problem is going to be, though, that Hawkins is really tight off these corners in the dirty air. That's really giving the double toe essentially to Cohn and forcing him up even more tighter. It just feeds in and more and more and more to the rest of the cars as they go back on the straight.
They have managed, though, to gap the likes of Ken Hacker on back. You can see Wagner and Eric Schaus with Matt Taylor trying to close up that gap and get up past Schaus as well. Ticking over into the halfway point now, Justin. This is where things become important. This is where the strategy battle becomes very important, because we know if we go green to the end from here, there are some cars that can one stop, and there are other cars that require 2 trips down onto pit road.
And for some of the drivers, they're hoping there's a caution in about 10 laps or so for this to work out for them to be forcing everyone else to come down. They cannot afford for this race to run green. But Newsom, keep in mind, up at the front, a great run on De Groot.
She wants victory once more. I mean, you could kind of hear a bit of shell shock in her voice when we spoke to her in HyperX Victory Lane from Texas Motor Speedway, but I think the nerves are starting to dissipate. I think the confidence is starting to build. Yellow flag is out once more, though. I think it's Jim Brooks and Brett Bennett who have got together in this one. A couple of cars that were down already 1 lap, Justin. I think that's the Jim Brooks car that's still trying to find a way back out onto track.
Oh, and right in front of the race leaders, too. That was close.
And we'll take a look at that from De Groot's perspective in just a moment's time. Strategy then once more up in the air. It's going to be contact from behind. Ooh, just a little bit too fast as Brett Bennett through the corner. As stacks them up. And let's jump on board with Nick De Groot now, Justin.
Yeah, and he's just trying to make sure he gets to the pace car, and I don't think he realizes here that they're trying to back up into the middle of the racetrack. Good heads up to see that car as he came around the corner to properly avoid. That could have been disastrous.
Yeah, that could have been, but once more, great to see some heads-up driving here in the Lionheart Speedway Series, as yellow flag then for the 6th time today. Justin, I'm going to set you off very, very quickly to start doing the strategy math here. You can see split once more. Cohn down onto pit road. He's not followed down by Luis Gonzalez Nunez. He fakes out at the last moment. Alex Gouillon is down onto pit road, as is Emerson Santos.
And a lot of those drivers in particular were some of the ones who stayed under the last caution flag. So they essentially can make it to about around 30 or so to go if it was to stay green. Everyone else still has to make that extra that 1 pit stop at the very least. And remember, De Groot, Newsom, and company are hoping for an air quick caution flag. They have to come down on at least 2 times still, by my account.
So would you have come down this time around, Justin, if you were, let's say, someone like Matt Wagner? You're in 6th position, not necessarily all the way at the front, and you're now in danger, I would think, of someone like Matt Taylor, Christopher, coming and jumping you on one of these subsequent restarts now.
That's a tough question, because you definitely have to think these drivers are weighing this out. Where, do you think you're going to be able to make the spots back in the traffic? Or do you think there's going to be an air caution that's going to help you and everyone's going to have to come down in that circumstance? It's all coming down to the luck of the draw. You pick one way or the other. Honestly, I'm not quite sure.
you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. It's that kind of a situation, isn't it, here from the Milwaukee Mile. Working lap number 95, and this is the 6th caution of the day, Justin, but I will say when the green flag runs are there, the laps very much fly on by, and something to just keep in mind, because if we get a green flag run from here to the end of this race, the next 80 laps or so, they'll be gone in the blink of the eye, and that one stop that these cars have to make, that is going to be so important that you get onto pit road as safely as you can, because of course a very unique pit entry, and you do the same on pit exit because it's the same. Quite unique in terms of pit access roads.
Yeah, we've seen drivers utilizing those rumble strips in turns 1 and 2 to try and rotate. And it's so easy to potentially loop it around on that apron, I should rather say, in turns 1 and 2 to be able to exit the pit lane. Because it's essentially just that one car width. It can be so tight and easy to push over the yellow curbing, and in turn just having to go straight off into this straightaway down the back stretch. It can be so difficult to properly make your way around that apex of that pit exit properly without pushing up into traffic.
Someone needs to tell Nick DeGroot, by the way, that just because this is the sim, he should be careful about how close he gets to the iRacing.com pace car, making its way back down onto the pit road. Then after the 6th caution of the day, we will resume racing on lap 97 out of 175. We've now just got 7 cars at the front of your field on this split strategy as we get back underway here at the DMLC Racing Channel, Milwaukee 175 once more. A very impressive launch for Nick DeGroot, who has figured out the timings. Side by side they work. It's Matt Wagner, Eric Schaus. So open the door, I think, for Matt Taylor as well, Justin.
Oh, and Taylor just needs to try and get towards that grouping right now as look at that send. How about 3 wide just about off the corner?
Wagner and Hacker are side by side in front. Schaus and Taylor side by side behind. If I'm Matt Taylor, I'm starting to get very excited here. Jump on board with this driver, Justin. Get past 1. He's going to get past 2 now as well.
Oh, and this is going to be tight with Tyler Graff now to make it 3 wide and had to let off with the squeeze.
Still 3 wide, though, exiting the corner. They somehow make it work. I think Taylor will scramble on past Eric Schaus, still on board, as side by side between the 26 car. Oh, almost contact with Tyler Graff. And of course, Justin, that is lap traffic right now.
Yeah, that's extremely frustrating. Just a bit of a different apex line, tighter on the apex that time from Graff. That's now really started to hold up these machines. And look at this, Chris Stouffer now looking to take advantage.
Indiana's own trying to roll momentum up on that high line. Wagner is very tight on the inside, and Stouffer around the outside up into 8th. Has to hold on for now, though. Looks back to the outside line, trying to get around Eric Schaus, but over-under will have to try and be attempted down into turn 1. Oh, it's exciting stuff, and Barrett Rolfe once more, Justin, is rocketing his way up through the field.
It's exactly what he wants to see when it comes to this net strategy, to say the very least right now. Van der Sande as well. But for Matt Taylor, this is not what he wanted whatsoever, because you need to pick these lines proper as well as getting that rhythm too. The lines just haven't been working his ways. Here he comes. Here comes Rolfe now behind him.
Rolfe, I think, is just trying to find a lane to go to. Van der Sande has the inside. Can he slide up into the path of Matt Taylor? Yes, he can. Holds the inside on the run down into turn 3. Barrett Rolfe, it's a rather good view of some incredible action. Stouffer feeds the dirty air back to Van der Sande. That helps Taylor to get back his position. Rolfe is now going to get to the inside of Van der Sande here, Justin. This is all crazy, and it's all about just jockeying for position and making the move when you can.
Exactly right now, and right now that opportunity hasn't opened up. Keep in mind, we're about 10-15 laps or so, the very most for many of the drivers who have stayed out the past couple caution flags before they have to duck down for fuel here.
Van der Sande side by side. He's going to look to the outside as well of Chris Stouffer. Something has happened to Matt Taylor on this restart, Justin. He is not as comfortable with the car as he was before. He's down out of the top 10 now. Barrett Rolfe around the outside as Van der Sande almost makes contact with Chris Stouffer.
Remember, Taylor's been in clean air much of this race, and now this is some of the biggest dirty air he's had to deal with of potentially this entire race week. So now, that dirty air, I think he's just trying to get used to it compared to running in that open space, and it's just hurting him that much more at the moment.
You can see, by the way, Schaus is still scrapping it out. That's with Ken Hacker now. Tyler Groff is feeding the dirty air in front of them. If you're lap traffic at this point, I think it's a tough call, Justin, because Groff is down one lap, and he wants to be in the right position if anything were to happen and we get another caution and he can get a wave around. But you can see it's really becoming a hornet's nest here as Barrett Rolfe looks to the inside of Chris Stouffer. And now Van der Sande has already gotten around Stouffer, so it just gives you an indication of one slip up, one little check up in momentum, and you find yourself dropping through the field.
Rolfe has been playing with fire, though. He made near contact a little bit with some of these cars here. So this is now getting extremely dicey with how close he has been getting here. Great send, though, to the inside. Just can't keep up the momentum quite yet as he nearly slips up into the 13.
That was very close. And like I was saying, Justin, these guys are giving each other just enough room. Stouffer's going to cut off Rolfe, and that will mean that Rolfe will have to defend now from Matt Taylor for the time being. But they know where each other is. They're listening to their spotters very, very well and making their way around this track without too much difficulty. At the front, though, you will see the top four have kind of broken away very slightly. De Groot, Newsom, Nunez, and Musselman. But, of course, Justin, they owe us a pit stop imminently here. They've been out on track for 55 laps. They should be down onto pit road in the next 10, I would say.
They need a caution flag, and now essentially is. I believe that if it is that 10, they might be able to try and save it. Might is the key word, but they need to save a lap of gas. Everybody else who is already ducked in, they can essentially come in at any time after they have to duck down. So the window is open pretty soon for just about the entire field. It's just going to be a matter of how it works out for a lot of these drivers. I think, though, Van der Sande, Stouffer, Taylor, Rolfe are in a great situation once they do duck down for the front.
I'm trying to do the math in my head right now, Justin. Let's say these cars can stay out there for 10 more laps. They're working 120 with a fuel window. Oh, it's close. You're right, you know. I wonder if that second caution that we had in quick succession on what was it, lap 5 or so, or that's really helped them out in the long term here. It's going to be close, but just like we saw last time at Texas, if you're Alexis Newsom, you're feeling confident about how you're calculating the fuel right now.
Yeah, and this is tough to do as well in your head as you're driving along in the race car. It's going to be interesting. Keep in mind that the fall off for the drivers has reached, up at the front at the least, half a second compared to their fastest laps earlier on in this run.
But by the same token, Justin, it's not like they're losing much time to someone like Chris Stouffer on fresh tires right now. Difference last time around was about 1/10 of a second as you see Tyler Groff peeling his way down onto pit road. This time at the line, but Chris Stouffer, it's a 22.891, very consistent. And once more, it's just about 1/10 of a second between the front runners and these mid-pack guys, if you will. So it's not like tire fall off is as significant as you might think at a 1 mile track like this.
I don't necessarily think it's completely the fall off. It might be a bit too just trying to let up a little bit on the gas to make sure they can get to that money lap with 54 to go. Because if they can get there, it's going to be interesting, to say the very least, on how it plays out.
Yellow flag.
Caution.
And it's Mark Cohn who's mixed up in this one. Oh, another driver who has not enjoyed a fun start to the season, facing the wrong direction and the exit of turn 2 as well. Let's go and take a look at this replay as quickly as we can, Justin.
Well, this just became a fuel mileage race for everybody, as let's take a look at this, indeed.
Ooh.
Man.
I think that's Wagner in front who loses the car by themselves, Justin. Let's take a look at the onboard from Mark Cohn here, and you'll see it's just down on that inside curb. And it's Charles Teed, in fact, in the 5 car, so unfortunate contact there, and it's really, unfortunately, Mark Cohn that takes the brunt of the damage.
And I believe he actually checked up T did for Foresight to make sure he didn't slam into the side pod of Foresight. And just a bad place, the bad time for Mark Cohn in that situation, Arjuna.
So pit road is, of course, going to be extremely busy. This might be the money stop. We're going to step aside for a brief commercial break here on Racebot TV so we can take you green to the end of this race. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after these messages from our partners.
Wreck avoidances.
Stay low. Keep high, stay low.
Daring passes.
Oh, you're going to get it.
Silly jumps.
Oh my god, a drive-through.
The thrill of victory.
They're against the wall. Good win, Mark. Stay low.
And the occasional mishap.
My sim crashed.
This is the DMLC Racing Channel.
Hello and welcome back to Racebot TV and continued coverage here in the Lionheart Speedway Series presented by DMLC Racing Channel. And round 3, the DMLC Racing Channel Milwaukee 175 strategy has been blown wide open with another caution on the day, the 7th so far. A number of cars electing to stay out, including Matt Taylor and Barrett Rolfe, two of the strongest contenders in the race so far today. We'll get back to green with just over 55 laps left in today's action. Taylor at the front took pole position and found himself struggling due to strategy. Now, though, leads once more as we get back underway, Justin Prince, with what's going to be a strategy race to the very end.
And keep in mind, based on the numbers, even with the caution laps, just about everybody is still projected to be just above the number to make it to the end on gas. It's going to be close for the entire field. Just about everybody, including those drivers who stayed out. I think they're banking either on a caution flag or to try and hope that everybody's going to have to duck down
Three
and
wide
take service
contact.
either way.
It's DeGroot, Nunez, Fowler. There's 7 cars getting mixed up in this one. There's still a car that's bouncing end over end. Dean Mole, Matt Wagner, Mark Cohn, Charles Teed. And oh, the cars out front, Justin, they wanted a yellow flag, and well, they've got a big one.
Yes, this will get them to the end from here, but man, this takes out a lot of contenders. Have to feel for Nick DeGroot in particular, who is playing a very strong race. But in the end, 3 wide, 2.5 lanes. Still, Chris Fowler in particular losing a ton of momentum. Nunez trying to force it down low, and around they go, a massive pile up in turn 2.
And watch this super slow-mo. I think Chris Stouffer gets very lucky to make his way through. So does George Anzaldo. Trevor Malone ducks through a diving car. And might be some good onboard looks. You can see Cone actually locks it down. That's what happens to him, so no damage there. One more look at this one, Justin. Let's ride on board with Stouffer here and take a look. And you'll see the puff of smoke in front as we come through turn 1 at speeds in excess of 240 kilometers an hour. Puffs of smoke, nowhere for Stouffer really to go, no time to react. And fortunately for Indiana's own, it comes out as well as he could expect.
Essentially had to pick a hole, and he found one quickly with barely any time to react. But man, a lot of heavy hitters taken out in that situation. Big checkups in the back of the field as well. Seen massive pileups. I believe that's Paul Jenkins that also piles in there. Mark Cohn, who was just involved with the last caution flag, had to lock it down to try and stay out of big trouble.
And so, well, we come back from that commercial break, Justin, to a completely new race situation then, because, well, what's happened to the cars out front as well? I'm not seeing where Matt Taylor is on my timing screen right now.
11th.
So he has come down onto pit road. Just missed that on my timing screen. Barrett Rolfe has cycled out in 13th, along with Craig Forsyth and Joe Branch, Jeff Young, Eric Schaus, who also came down onto pit road. And this, Justin, has completely blown the race wide open. And race winner last time at the Texas Motor Speedway, Alexis Newsome, is back out front. And on strategy, is probably feeling quite comfortable right now.
I still think it's tight. Even with the pace laps here on the gas, they might need one more caution flag. But right now, it's going to be interesting how Guyon plays this. An arrow look here. What happened here again? Bit of a checkup coming up as De Groot tries to go to the high side, Nunez to the inside.
It's just never going to work is the problem. I think AJ Musselman is who sends De Groot flying up into the catch fence as well. But this type of stuff, I mean, let's see if we can jump on board potentially with Nunez at this point in time, Justin. It's an aggressive move down to the inside. And you can see, I mean, the momentum from De Groot is always going to take him to that part of the track. Here, this will give us the better look from this onboard, and you'll just see it's a very aggressive move. And I know we're early in these restarts, but he's already pinching himself all the way down to the curbing there, and I don't think Chris Fowler has necessarily done anything wrong.
I don't think Chris Fowler expected him to still send it down there, if anything. There was a checkup, yes, but I think he expected to stay too wide into the corner there.
Was a bit weird, that's for sure, but a couple of slow-mo looks at it, lights are back off on the pace car for what's now the 8th time today, Justin, if I'm counting correctly.
Give or take, it's been an intriguing one so far, to say the very least. Strategy, again, the name of the game, but with 50 to go, oh boy, is it going to be big, especially for the 08, who still has to come down for one more stop to make it to the end, keep in mind.
The 08, you're right, is guaranteed to owe us a pit stop. Newsome, though, will lead us back to green here at Milwaukee. 8 laps on the stint done. Fuel saving the name of the game. Victory last time at Texas. What can she do here at the DMLC Racing Channel, Milwaukee 175? Once more, a very impressive launch for our race leader. Chris Stouffer has to fend off a challenge from behind. It's his teammate down to the inside for Tony Schowen, your championship leader. Ken Hacker holds on to 6th position, though. Justin, I think we are going to see this restart just as chaotic as the last one was.
The intensity level definitely starting to really pick up. That's got to be the main thing for sure right now, because drivers' no points are definitely on the line. Positions are valuable and key. It's going to be much more harder to pass from this point forward. But Newsome, keep in mind, got a great launch over the rest of the pack. Guyon and the rest of the grouping already behind by more than a second.
Stouffer slips down the inside of Luis Gonzalez Nunez. His teammate will try and follow in just a few moments' time. Hacker slips down the inside of Nunez. There might be some damage, I think, to that number 14 machine, because it's not just off the pace, Justin. He is 1 second off the pace. Excuse me, a half a second off the pace. Not as bad as I thought it was. I just misread the timing screen there.
Still significant, though, and it's still a good bit of dirty air being fed. How about Trevor Malone, meanwhile? We haven't talked about him all day. it has been in the back half of the field parts of this race, is now in the conversation here as Nunez is really starting to bottle these drivers up. Nunez stayed out with the damage, I believe, on the left side pod.
Yeah, you got a good look at it from this roll bar shot as down the inside here comes Barrett Rolfe trying to get up into the top 10 as well, and I do think he's going to be able to swing his way through the corner and indeed up in to 9th position once more. Gap between Newsom and Alexander Van der Sant, though, by the way, Justin, is now up to 2.3 seconds at this point in time. I wonder if this is Van der Sant doing some fuel saving. I wonder if at the same time maybe Newsom has realized that she cannot make it this time around and is on a slightly different strategy to what took her to victory lane at Texas.
I think the lap times are going to be the telling sign. It's about a 1/10 of a second difference or so at the moment. And keep in mind that there is traffic for Van der Sant compared to the very clean air of Newsom. So that also, I think, adds a factor to be able to save a little bit. I think several of the others are definitely saving, though. Christopher, I would put in that grouping, for example, might be in the grouping. Tony Schowen, just to make sure they have enough, because it's going to be tight for those final few laps at this rate.
And once more, Justin, I mean, fuel, people who are maybe new to racing don't necessarily think that a topic like fuel could be so exciting, but I mean, we could talk about mixtures of fuel, you know, the various ways it gets into cars in terms of the fuel filling system, or just today, the strategy again coming to the forefront of these races. And we thought it might at the start, but I don't think we necessarily thought it would be this type of a fuel save race where Alexis Newsom and now is very much in control of her own destiny.
And continuing to just try and run her away, you have to think that Newsom, at the pace that she's going, might be thinking that at the very least there might be another caution to help with the mileage, because she is not slowing down. If anything, she's been picking up the pace and the tempo compared to the rest of the pack, who is continuously trying to slow down their pace by a couple tenths.
Lap 134 complete, so coming towards 40 miles to go here. Left side of the screen, let's just remind everybody here, Justin, what is at stake in terms of the various strategies. As yellow flag waves once more, oh, that's going to be crucial for the hopes of someone like Newsom, and it is Luis Gonzalez Nunez that gets mixed up for a second consecutive caution here, and we'll spool up the Racebot TV replay machine here, Justin, and take a look. It might be contact with that car behind here.
Actually goes way too low across the yellow curbing and just destabilizes the back end. Hard contact for Nunez, crushes in that wing even more so. Vern Hawkins, the third, does a great job to avoid this.
Yeah, good look here. As I wonder if he did avoid it. Maybe slight contact on the right front there for Hawkins in terms of damage, but end result is caution out one more time, Justin. And all of the things that we were just talking about in terms of strategy, well, it's changed, and now you'll see a couple of fake outs as Alexander Van der Sant and Christopher looked like they were going to commit to pit lane. But of course, the only car we expected down is Alex Guyon. Will anyone decide to follow him down?
Doesn't look like it. I think at this point, now this caution flag just made things very interesting, because with this period, I think everyone who came in before about 20 laps ago can make it from this point because the second yellow. The tough part is now going to be, how will this fare out for drivers like Taylor, like Rolfe, like Forsyth, like Joe Branch, who are all in those various different strategies that for sure can make it. Still going to be a nail biter, and it's still going to be some intense action as a result here with this caution flag. But for Newsom, it's going to be the true test of, can she hold on for a back-to-back victory?
Well, I'm hearing fuel burning from some of these cars right now. Hard to kind of pick up exactly which one it is. This is interesting. This is wonderful. You can see left side, by the way, as that is AJ Musselman down onto pit road. He's already one lap down, so in 19th position, excuse me. Not going to lose out too much there, but 21 laps into the stint are the top 5 here, Justin. You've got Taylor, who really might be in the driver's seat here, and of course Barrett Rolfe, who has been very, very strong, but could be one of those two. If we go green to the end from here, those might be the two that find themselves with the least saving to try and do.
I agree with you on that. And by the way, the fuel burning you're talking about is from this machine here, Craig Forsyth, who is among your drivers who are in the good-to-go mark by a couple laps or so. So I think Craig is trying to take the gamble of, okay, I want to have a slightly lighter car here and see if I can get this to work and try and get a couple more positions past. The problem's going to be, well, one of them is Rolf, who's in front of him.
At least one more lap before we return to the green flag racing conditions. Taking a look, by the way, at my track stats over here, Justin. This race, both in the IR18 and the DW12 days, has never finished under caution. And last time the IR18 came here, the winning difference was Jason Galvin by 0.06 of a second. I don't think we're going to get the same type of finish here today, given the way that the race has kind of unfolded before. Definitely going to be about strategy instead, and for someone like Newsom, they'll be hoping those memories from Texas hold strong, and once more they visit the HyperX victory lane.
This is going to be very intriguing again on how this goes here. But I think it's going to be important to make sure you keep that clean air. Keep in mind there is lap traffic that is going to be a buffer here for Newsom. That's Tyler Graf, that's second in line.
And not the first time Graf has been that lap traffic. So cork in the bottle. What will the 26 car elect to do this time around? The safety car for the 9th time today will return to the safety of pit road. Once more, an early jump from your pole position race leader as we come back to green flag racing. Stouffer tries to take advantage, but Van der Sant already looking for a way past that lap traffic. And this might be what Newsom needs right now. Stouffer and Van der Sant side by side as we restart this race, and Tyler Graf, Justin, is feeding dirty air to both of them.
Yeah, Graf now trying to ride that bottom of the racetrack too, and has not been given up. And keep in mind, Racing Park Graf is fighting so much as trying to get a lap back to be able to race with Charles Teed. So it's going to be intriguing how this plays out for this 26 machine.
How would you play this right now, Justin? Because Newsom is already 8/10 clear. I'm not saying that the 26 car has to by any means pull to the side of the road and let the leaders go on past, but very much aiding one driver and compromising the other 34.
Well, in this situation, knowing the circumstances, I'd honestly let them on by, or at least come down during one of the caution flags and maybe top off, get some fresh tires, something along those lines. But there's different approaches to these types of races, and we've seen the different approaches come into play. That dirty air is just a major factor right now for Newsom to be able to pull away by a couple tenths a lap from the rest of this pack at the moment. Keep in mind, Matt Taylor is also coming as one of the quick drivers right behind all of this too.
Yeah, we're riding on board with George Anzaldo. Wonderful little chrome reflection of the surroundings of this track as he tucks in behind the championship leading Tony Schowen. Let's take a look at that front of that field now, because at 1.4 seconds adrift, still stuck behind Tyler Graf here, and Alexander Van der Sant is sniffing a podium. And Justin, after what happened at Motegi for Van der Sant, I have a feeling he's not going to let this one go easy. He's going to fight tooth and nail. He's not going to be content with third either.
I don't think he's going to be quite content either. Just wants to get some type of momentum going. He's had some bad luck in some of these races so far. This has right now been one of his best runs this season. It's just a matter of trying to fight that air wash at this moment, and you can see just how much it's pushing him up the track.
You can also see, by the way, the sun seems to be shining slightly brighter right now, Justin. Don't think that's affecting the track temperature so much, but it might be a bit of a factor as we work 30 to go here in those final couple of laps in terms of the drivers that can adjust the best to the varying track conditions.
Keep in mind the track temperature is about 90 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment. 81 degrees is the air temp, so very hot and very humid conditions that have been getting more humid as this race has gone on. So that's affecting a bit of the straight line speed for some of these drivers too, with the hot heat humidity. The hotter the air temp, the more it affects the speeds and how quick you can actually go on the racetrack.
And it's not just the tires and stuff, it's the engine as well, of course. So
yes.
Various conditions there. Barrett Rolfe in 8th position, Justin. 18 positions up on the day. If we stay green to the end, though, I think he's kind of hit his bubble now where he's going to find it hard to make up too many more positions. George Anzaldo in front might be one, but for Craig Forsyth behind as well, who's putting a lot of pressure onto Barrett-Roth. 21 positions gained. You don't always see double-digit positions, but it seems to be a bit of a storyline in the 8th through about 15th positions here.
These are all the drivers who ran good race pace, but struggled with qualifying pace, remember.
Oh,
and it's an art form.
I hear a caution coming out, and indeed, yes it is. Yellow flag is out. Trevor Malone and Eric Schaus involved in something. Oh, and Malone is upside down as well. Michael Hagstrom might have been mixed up in this one. As you can see, he's stationary at the back of the shot as well. Sorry to cut you off there, Justin. I heard the car sliding up into the outside wall, and what happens here? I think Joe Branch has a pretty good look of this entire incident.
Yeah, it looks like the 22 of Schaus gets into the back end of Malone, and it's enough to hook Joe Branch into the incident, in fact. He's just trying to ride the high line, then bam, squished hard into the fence.
That's an unfortunate one as well. It does also mean that the final 20-something laps to the end of this race, Justin, just took on even more intrigue because now fuel is not going to be an issue at all for some of these cars. It's now very much who can make the initial jump on these restarts and try and get the position done as early as they can.
Wouldn't be surprised to see a couple drivers in the mid-pack in particular try to fuel burn now too, like we've seen before with Forsyth. And I think the couple drivers were doing that down the straightaway. Mark Cohn's doing it, for example. So a couple drivers are trying to get their cars a little bit more lighter here for these closing stages now that the fuel is not going to be the major concern.
So the top 5, Alexis Newsom, Chris Stouffer, Alexander Van der Sant, Ken Hacker, and then Matt Taylor. So a bit of a smorgasbord in terms of rookies and regulars. You've got Newsom, Van der Sant, rookies to Lionheart in general, Stouffer, Hacker, and Taylor, very much experienced veterans of the series. Should get back to racing, I think, the next time around as we see the muscle man back down onto pit road. Waiting for the lights to maybe drop off on the pace car. Not yet, so maybe one more lap here, Justin. So that does mean we'll have 23 to go when we go back to green. If I'm someone like Chris Stouffer, I'm probably sending a message to Tyler Groff saying, please get out of my way. I'd like to win this race.
That's the nice way of putting it. And I would be thinking the same way too, because we've seen how gigantic the run got in the clean air for Newsom compared to the dirty air being fed from Graf. So it's going to absolutely be extremely critical to time up this launch. Not so much for Newsom to be able to launch to get by Tyler Graf to have a shot at Newsom here.
And predictions, Justin. I think Newsom is very much in control now. I mean, fuel saving took her to the victory last time. I think it will do the same here today. Do you see any way that Stouffer and Van der Sant can maybe mount a challenge here? They're going to be aided by the fact that Tyler Groff has just come down onto pit road.
He's elected not to be a factor in this fight, it looks like here. And that's going to be exactly what Stouffer, Van der Sant, and company wanted to see here. And that changes what I was about to say, Arjun, because now there's definitely a shot. If you're able to overcome the dirty air and try and fight the clean air of Newsom's machine that she's going to be able to rotate, there's definitely a shot. I think you have to get side by side to have a chance, though, especially the outside. So for Stouffer, this is going to be the most important launch of the season so far for him.
And so we will have 23 laps to go here from the Milwaukee Mile. It is Alexis Newsom, the rookie, at the front of your field. Already tasted victory once this season. Chris Stouffer, a veteran of the series, in behind. What will happen here in the closing stages? Can Stouffer get the jump? Can Van der Sant get the jump as the safety car pulls to the left side of the track once more? We're about to get back underway for the DMLC Racing Channel Milwaukee 175. Impressive jump from Newsom. Not such an impressive jump from Stouffer. And once more, as we enter the first and second corners, Justin, not really much of a contention for the race lead here.
Yeah, it's been a struggle all day for Chris Stouffer. It's a small restart box here at the Milwaukee Mile, keep in mind. So I think that just played a bit of a factor on where Newsom was able to know, okay, pace car is off, time to immediately launch, since it's a 1 second buffer essentially.
On board with Jordan Zaldo, who's working side by side with Barrett Rolfe. We have a sim experienced driver profile for the series organizer. 90 starts, 17 top 10s, 6 top 5s, and a solitary victory and a solitary pole. Obviously part of the leagues since the first round at the Michigan International Speedway. First victory had to wait until season 3, and now back in the DW12. I wonder how long it will take him to taste victory once more. He does sniff, though, potential top 5 opportunity. Back to the front of your field. Half a second separates Newsom and Stouffer. Van der Sant well and truly on the heels of the number 13 machine here, Justin. 20 laps to go, 19 as we cross the line, and Newsom looks once more in control.
Been that way. Whoever's been able to get the clean air has been able to control the momentum and tempo by up to a tenth a second a lap, it seems. Just seems to be the way this car drives, as well as how this track drives here on the short tracks. It's not going to be easy, though, to keep this lead up, though. Keep in mind, Newsom continues to be the fastest car on the racetrack.
Proving the importance of clean air as Stouffer dips 2 wheels below the white line there, just trying to cut the track that little bit more, find the opportunity to build up the speed. Estimated about 6 minutes left, and we'll find out if a rookie can once more take victory. And while the series regulars, Justin, have been on the podium, I mean, Tony Schowen has finished on the podium in the first 2 races here. What is it about these rookies that have rocketed their way to the front and really found a home here in the Lionheart Speedway Series?
I think it just comes down to their way of rising to the ranks and being able to learn about these tracks and learn about their competitors and get into the right situations to be able to learn. Because if you're able to find someone to latch onto, or a group of people you can latch onto to learn, then you're in a great spot to be able to develop as a driver. And several of these competitors, I think, have done that throughout the racing careers to put themselves in a situation to be contenders here in the Lionheart Speedway Series. And we've been seeing that all season long, where I think they're definitely going to be drivers you'll see sticking around and be talking points for the next couple of years at least or so here in Lionheart competition.
It's not just Lionheart competition. I wonder, as we walk towards and creep our way towards the month of May as well, if some of these drivers will be making appearance in the various 500-mile race broadcasts that iRacing and Racebot TV will once more come together to put on. First it's the fixed 500, then the main event itself. Inzaldo around the outside. Forsyth gets on path for 8th position. Let's turn the attentions back to the front of the field as Newsom across the start-finish line to complete lap 162, Justin. Very much in control, and the gap to Stouffer, now 0.8 of a second.
Stouffer is starting to reel in Newsom a little bit, and here's the big part. AJ Musselman is up the road, and there's a chance that feeds dirty air to the race leader, and that's going to be the true test. If Newsom ends up having trouble passing by Musselman, then this could be where Chris Stouffer has a shot. If Musselman lets on by Newsom quickly, then this may be very difficult for Stouffer to have a shot. It looks like they're going to be letting him go.
Let's see if the same thing happens for Stouffer. He gets a bit more dirty air as Musselman will try and, I think, get out of the way. Oh, no, Stouffer loses time. There is definite time lost there from Stouffer. Door open for Van der Sant, who slings it down the inside. Indiana Zone trying to hold on to that second position for Adrenaline Motorsport. But Van der Sant is up into second position now, Justin, as we've got 10 laps to go at the start-finish line.
And Stouffer's not going to be happy about that one, because I think the reason there was such a big checkup was I think that Musselman was just trying to get to the very bottom, to the inside, to let by the leaders. Problem is, Stouffer's already committed to the bottom. Absolutely huge moment to reach him there, and now has set up a dramatic fight for second. This is exactly what Newsom wanted to see.
Newsom has skipped away to 1.6 seconds as Van der Sant still on that outside line, holds on to a second place finish. He wanted a podium at Motegi. They're almost contact between the two of them. Oh, this has been a wonderful third round of this championship, Justin, and I must say we'll return in 1 week's time to the Virtual Homestead Miami for what should be, based on today, an absolutely fascinating race.
It's been a very intriguing race indeed with the strategy, and keep in mind when it comes to Homestead, both the races in Lionheart competition this season in 2021 have been throwers. I'm expecting a thrower as well for that one, but it's been a thrower in a different way here with how things have played out, especially with the drivers who have had to battle dirty air off one another, have provided some great back and forths. How about Ken Hacker, though, having a very solid race today? One of the best races for him this season combined in 2021.
Yeah, it's been a great day, and we ride on board with Hacker entering turn 1 right now. Lots of dirty air from Christopher in front, who's now 0.6 of a second back from Van de Sant. So Van de Sant looking very comfortable right now, and as we approach 6 to go, he's actually chasing down the race leader here, Justin. He might be an outside contender for the race lead here. 6 miles at the line.
Still, it's 1.9 seconds, the difference between first and second. That's going to be the tough part. I don't know if you can close that up in this amount of time here at the Milwaukee Mile unless Newsom really has a slip-up or reaches somebody at the wrong time. Musselman has actually pulled off the racetrack, was about to be a factor again.
So it's 1.8 at the line, 5 laps to go here. Alexis Newsom looks on for a second consecutive victory, rocketing her into championship contention. And not just contention, but Justin, potential favorite tags get associated when you win 2 of the first 3 races. You talk about the Lionheart Retro Series where we're seeing Sage Karam domination in that championship. This one, Newsom is stamping her mark on the championship, and already as we head into the first Triple Crown of the season, 2 victories and 2 very strong performances.
And I have to say, Alexis has learned a ton as well from that first race where she had great qualifying pace, but struggled in the race trim and dropped back down through the pylon as the race went on. But for the past couple weeks, has nailed the strategy, has been quick in the race. It's gotten better and better as these weeks have gone on. Just needs to get around this track for another 2 more laps to secure this checkered flag.
Battle for second has very much cooled off as the gap between Stouffer and Van de Sant up to 1 second. Ken Hacker trails by a further half a second. 2 miles to go for Newsom here. And Justin, I'm not trying to put too much pressure onto Newsom's shoulders right now, but I do think that this is the start of a very intriguing campaign for not just a rookie to Lionheart, but to iRacing as well. The white flag waves in the air. It's been a wild ride, not just here at Milwaukee, but first at Motegi and then at the Texas Motor Speedway. The dominant names in the Lionheart Racing Series yet to take victory, but out of turn 3 and out of turn 4, Alexis Newsom, for the 2nd consecutive race, wins on strategy at the DMLC Racing Channel Milwaukee 175 and punches her name into the championship favorite books. And my, oh my, Justin, I have loved the type of wheel-to-wheel racing we've seen in this Lionheart Speedway Series. And the next time we head to the Homestead Miami Speedway, you talked about the races we've already seen this season. I can't wait to see what the DW12 delivers from there.
I'm expecting a thrower indeed, but what a thrilling victory for Newsom. Lex is definitely going to be very happy after this one. Played the strategy right and dialed it in as she crashes the car trying to spin it into the burnout.
So some unsuccessful burnouts there, but she will burn the house down in the HyperX victory lane. A very impressive podium for Alexander Van de Sant as well. Adrenaline Motorsports, they do get a 3rd podium of the season. It was Tony Showen in the first couple of rounds, but this time it's Indiana's own Chris Stouffer that takes home that podium finish. And Newsom, rather short donuts there, Justin, but I mean, the amount of damage she had, can't blame her. And once again, I mean, she'll get better at those. I have a feeling she'll get a bit more practice on those donuts in HyperX victory lane throughout this season.
I think there's definitely that chance, especially as the season goes on. I think Newsom might be able to contend for a few more victories as the season goes on with how things have been faring out. What a drive, though, and what a race, and how things played out here at the Milwaukee Mile.
And so let's take a look at our unofficial race results presented by Carnox. And I say unofficial because, as always in the Lionheart Racing Series, Race Control will have their own look through the past 175 miles. But after a thrilling strategy race, 10 cautions on the day, it was Alexis Newsom taking victory by 1.8 seconds from Team Race First Black's Alexander Van de Sant. A debut podium for him the rookie in the number 97, but of course, all eyes on the rookie in the 63, taking victory for the second time this season. Christopher in third at least makes one veteran on the podium for Adrenaline Motorsports, continuing their strong run in this team's championship. Ken Hacker up in fourth, up 5 positions on the day. Rather solid effort for the number 24. Matt Taylor, pole position, down into 5th. A slight miscue on strategy midway through the race left him a lot of work to overcome. Barrett Rolfe, one of our biggest movers, he's up 20 positions on the day, but Craig Forsyth in the number 72 car, he's up 23 positions, our hardest charger here from Milwaukee. Tony Schowen in 8th, Mark Cohn in 9th, series organizer George Enzaldo in 10th position. Rounding out the top 10, we'll work our way through the 35 cars that started this race. Paul Jenkins, Dean Moll, Jeff Young, and Alex Guyon, the rest of the cars finishing on the lead lap, with Vern Hawkings and Christopher Kresge finishing 1 lap down. Charles Teed in the number 5 car finishes 2 laps down, with Tyler J. Groff for NLR in the number 26 car in 18th. AJ Musselman, of course, a bit of a factor in those final couple of laps. He ends up in 19th, 6 laps down, with Michael Hagstrom 9 laps down in 20th position. Then we start to get into the retirements here. Joe Branch, Trevor Malone, Eric Schaus, they were all finishing 26, 27 laps down respectively after contact through turn 4. Luis Gonzalez Nunez in 24th, with Chris Fowler, Matt Wagner, Nick DeGroot, Emerson Santos, Brett Bennett, Jim Brooks 24th through 30th. Chris Linini, Mike Rigney, Matt Houston, Joe Hassett, and then James Krahula rounds out the 35 cars. I tell you what, Justin, let's get straight into our post-race show, presented by HyperX, the partners of the Lionheart Racing Series, because whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15, for 15% off all orders. And I tell you what, Justin, let's kick it off and take it away. Alexis Newsom is standing by in HyperX Victory Lane with Justin Prince.
Alexis, you've done it again. You've won this time at the Milwaukee Mile. Dialed in the strategy just right. How are you feeling about your race tonight, first of all?
Well, I feel really great about that. I was not confident at all going into.
When it came to this race, what was kind of going through your mind when the caution flag started flying and you're trying to dial in that strategy to figure out, okay, is this going to play out in terms of a fuel mileage race? What was kind of going through your mind in those closing stages?
Yeah, when me and Nick DeGroot, my new teammate, stayed out there, we were counting on a lot of cautions, and we were both on the same strategy, and it ended up working out.
2 wins in 3 races makes you one of the championship favorites. How much pressure does that now put on for you for the rest of the season, knowing you're one of its main contenders so far?
It's quite a bit of pressure, especially being pretty new around here. I just have to kind of ignore that, I guess, and keep doing the same.
Anyone you want to thank for the run tonight?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Big Blue Discount Auto of Ashland, my main sponsor, my new team, Factory Back Motorsports, Covey Moore and Nick DeGroot, and everybody who supported me and taught me things along the way. It's been a
Congratulations on the victory.
pleasure. Thank you.
So second trip down into the HyperX Victory Lane for Alexis Newsom. I have a feeling we'll see her a few more times this season. Let's bring on in Alexander Van der Santen. After a potential podium was ripped out of your hands at the season opener at Motegi, Alex, a very fine performance here, getting past Christopher through lap traffic to get up onto second. What does that feel like, and just how crazy was that race from your perspective?
Oh, that was awesome. It was flat out the whole way. Car felt great. I could put it pretty much anywhere on the track, and yeah, just sent it.
What do you think made this race a little bit more stop and start, but why were you able to actually overcome that? We saw on the restart some 3 and 4 wide action at times. Didn't always think it was going to work out well, but you guys out on track, you seem to respect each other, you know the limits, and despite racing wheel to wheel at some incredible speeds. 10 cautions, I think that could have been a lot worse given how much you guys were racing there.
Yeah, no, it was really tight racing, but really respectful too at the same time. You know, I had the confidence in the car and the other drivers that we were able to race side by side and race hard and be able to pull off those moves. There was a lot of give and take, but yeah, I was able to get through it. I avoided the 3 wide, fortunately, but yeah, on the restarts, those were extra tough. I made a mistake and let Chris around me at one point, but where I'd been strong on the high line on those, but live and learn.
Next time out, Alex, we head to Homestead, Miami for the first of our Triple Crown races. Of course, that a little bit more intrigue and focus, I guess, for you guys. What do you think that race will be like? No in-car tools, which I think does make Homestead a little bit more easier for a modern Indy car to kind of drive through. Have you done any laps there, or what are you expecting from that type of a race?
Honestly, I have no idea. I think, you know, with the IR18, it tends to spread out quite a bit. It's a little packy at the start, but with this, we have a lot more downforce, so it might be a pack race. I just have to see what the setup does.
Congratulations on this podium, Alex. Hopefully the first of many in this season.
Thanks, fellas.
So that was Alexander Van der Sant. Very impressive podium there. Now let's bring in Indiana's own Chris Stouffer. 3rd place on the day. But Chris, late race drama there when you got a bit checked up with some lap traffic. What was going through your mind there? And was there anything you could do to really fend off the challenge from the number 97?
Yeah, I still have a lot going through my head, to be quite honest, after that. You know, not real happy with it being a lap car, and as hard as it was to pass, as hard as I drove after you know, pitting and drive back up through the field. You know, I was trying my hardest to maintain 2nd place, but you know, at some point there, I felt like I was pushing it so hard. I was worried about taking us both out, and just backed out and was like, you know what, I'll take 3rd versus being wrecked out. So.
How difficult was it in the dirty air there? Because basically, anytime you got some sort of a decent green flag run, the leader had the ability to pull out a bit of a gap there. Do you think that just the lack of in-car tools and the lack of adjustment for you to be able to actually work your way through the dirty air, did it make it difficult to follow at the front? Because from 2nd position, you were basically in and around that front for the entirety of the race.
Yeah, you couldn't pass the leader. I don't know that tools would have helped a whole lot. I mean, then we're talking, you know, maybe open setups, and that's a whole different ball game, you know. So, yeah, you couldn't pass the leader, as you saw with me falling in 2nd for a majority of that race. When you're further back, you can make some moves, and I was surprised. I was worried about it when I pit, but I had to pit because I was within that fuel window, and just, you know, wanted to do the best that I could. With my percentages there of being able to make it to the end. I mean, that all played out very well, and I was really surprised I was able to make moves further back in the traffic and come up through the field again, and hopefully, you know, ultimately bringing it home 3rd. So can't be too upset.
And good points for the team as well. One final question, Chris. You talk about percentages there in terms of the strategy. In a race where it's quite stop and start, and you know, you had cautions separated by sometimes just laps, because we saw a few cars having issues getting back to racing speed and getting the power down. What does that do in terms of that strategy mindset? How are you thinking about that, and how does it help having teammates like Joe Branch and Tony Schiavone, who are also very experienced in terms of, you know, this pit strategy game that you guys all have to play in these races? How does it help having that type of inter-team communication?
Having those guys around is great. You know, I've been racing with Tony and Joe for probably, I don't know, 6, 7 years, maybe even 8 years now. So, you know, I've known them a long time. We've got a good camaraderie between us 3, and you know, we're always talking about pit strategy, how far we can make it, you know, how many pit stops if we pit now, you know, just all the different things. We get to kind of bounce off of each other, and it's nice having that there. And you know, I gotta say, I love having them as teammates. Couldn't have better teammates, that's for sure.
Well, Chris, congratulations on the podium, the first one of the season. Looks good for the team in terms of those team championships. Now we look and see you and Tony Schowen and Joe Branch. What can you do in the Drivers' Championship as well? And we'll see you in 1 week's time from the virtual Homestead Miami. So that was Indiana's own Chris Stouffer. And Justin, once more, I mean, each of these first 3 rounds in this Lionheart Speedway series have been absolutely incredible. And next time out, like mentioned, the first Triple Crown of the season. Now, this doesn't pay out double points. That does not mean it is any less important.
It's still going to be a very dramatic race, though, I think, as drivers talked about. I think there's the chance we see a lot of back and forth, especially up at the front. The slipstream's going to be important, as well as to try and find that clean air. It's going to be fun to see how things play out, but with the pressure of the Triple Crown, it's a very critical race. It's a track where a lot of drivers have a lot of great success and excitement. It's going to be a fun race, to say the very least, Arjuna.
And I'm really looking forward to it as well. Homestead in the Lionheart Retro and IndyCar series really delivered some interesting storylines from the first race of the season, and now we head into it as the 4th race of this calendar, and we're really starting to work our way into the meats of the schedule here, Justin. 18 races, give or take, and it really means that each of them is important. Newsom with 2 victories so far. I said it during the end of that race. Very much a favorite for the championship now, and very intrigued how she, parlays this momentum into a championship run.
Has a lot of momentum, to say the very least, she has right now. And that's the important thing, is keeping that momentum up. It's going to be difficult to keep on trying to perform at this level, but I think she's got the ability to be able to do it at Homestead. I think she's got the ability as well to do it for much of the season, as we've seen so far. Very confident as a driver, and she has very good reason to be confident after the start.
2 victories already, and indeed it's rookies that have stamped themselves at the front of this championship. That's going to do it, though, for our coverage here from the Milwaukee Mile and round 3 of the Lionheart Speedway Series. Some thank yous to get to, though, first, because there's a lot of names that help the Lionheart Racing Series, powered by HyperX, get to where it is today. And indeed, let's start with the title sponsors of today's series. It is the DMLC Racing Channel, because if you're looking for entertaining sim racing content, look no further than the DMLC Racing Channel. Follow former Lionheart Retro Series Driver of the Year Mark Cohn's racing escapades as he battles for wins and avoids wrecks with cat-like reflexes, all while providing commentary sure to make you laugh, cry, or both. Follow along by subscribing to the DMLC Racing Channel on YouTube and like his Facebook page at the DMLC Racing Channel. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LINHRT15, for 15% off all orders.
The Sim Experience AccuForce Pro V2 is the premier professional simulation racing steering system. The key to its incredible realism is the groundbreaking direct drive motor control system, providing a driving experience that's second only to the real thing. For more information on the entire Sim Experience ecosystem, visit simexperience.com.
For sim racers, the Butt Kicker Gamer 2 or Simulation Kit has the missing driver-to-car connection, providing more realism to your sessions. By accurately responding to in-game audio, you can feel the track like never before, providing increased vehicle handling and faster lap times. Are you ready for the most immersive experience in sim racing? For more information, visit thebuttkicker.com, and don't forget to use the promo code LION2021 for 20% off all orders.
Minus 273 is the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a kart or sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz, and don't forget to also use Minus 273 LHRS15 for 15% off orders.
And those are just the main names. There is a whole crew that helps out on the back end for the Lionheart Racing Series. You've got series organizer George Anzaldo, David Cordy, Mark Cohn, and oh so many more. The names up on screen as well, they all help power the Lionheart Racing Series, and you can head to lionheartracingseries.com to learn more about the various names up on your screen and the 3 different competitions that the Lionheart sanctioning body organizes on a weekly basis. We will be back in a week's time from the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway for more of this wonderful action in terms of Dallara DW12. If you want to see more classic machinery, though, the Lionheart Retro Series heads now to the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park for round 4 of that championship as Sage Karam Domination heads north of the border to see what the Coanda driver can do. Today, though, it's about Alexis Newsom once more in the HyperX victory lane as 3 rookie victories this season have shaken up the running order. We'll be back on Racebot TV in 1 week's time for more continued Lionheart Racing Series action. But for now, goodbye and so long from the entire team behind me.